Hello, everyone. So I'm here to talk about, I guess, what you could say either key player developments or just players you need to take the next step. And I'm gonna go pretty much five underrated ones or just ones people don't seem to be always talking about. That's not like, oh no, Kirk Cousins, he needs to take the next step. Or Barr needs to start doing the pass rushing, which we've been saying for years, or anything along those lines where it's like it's a player that I think I have made my point. But my first one is Jaleel Johnson, a defensive tackle, more of this interior defensive lineman. And he kind of has played both spots. He's kind of backed up both spots, but with no Sheldon Richardson and Shamar Stephen being kind of the starter at the under tackle spot. There is an opportunity for Jaleel Johnson. And he's shown flashes in preseason games since he was drafted in 2017, and he just hasn't gotten onto the field in the regular season anyway. And once again, with no Richardson or no Tom Johnson for that matter, there's an opportunity to potentially see him line up next to Linval in the starting lineup more than one time. So, and Shamar Stephen doesn't really strike me as the type where if you have a guy who can actually be better than him, at least talent wise, and he's showing that he can do it, there's no reason to keep him off the field for Shamar Stephen. That's just my own personal opinion. Stephen is still very critical to the whole run game thing. I do know that, but I just mean in general, there's no reason why you should keep him off the field if he's showing this at a more consistent basis. And the reason why I chose Jaleel and not Jalen Holmes is just because I feel like we've seen Jaleel Johnson flash a whole lot more than we saw Jalen Holmes flash last preseason. Or I don't even remember a time where Jalen Holmes got into a game. My next one is one that some people do talk about, which is Chad Beebe. And whether it be a wide receiver, punt returner, kick returner, whatever special team thing, I think he could be kind of a key part to this somehow. Because if he becomes the third receiver, then obviously he becomes a very intricate part of the offense. It's a very significant piece. But due to Cheryl's going to the Saints, you could also say, well, we need a punt returner now. And BB did do some of that last preseason, I believe, and I think he did some in the regular season as well. Because, yeah. And kick returner is another thing that's kind of up in the air, partially because of the Cheryl's thing. And in general, I feel like last year they didn't really want him to be doing kick returning, it felt like. So this is another guy who could potentially be your kick returner, be like one of your special team aces, potentially. Potentially. But due to the lack of receiver depth, though, it wouldn't surprise me if he could get onto the field as a receiver as well. But I'd be a lot more surprised if he ended up being a third receiver as opposed to, some special team player that is either, being a gunner or returning kicks and punts and those kinds of things. But I would say, just as a special teamer alone, if he can emerge as a good special teams player, that is more than valuable. Because once again, when you lose a guy like Cheryl's, you need someone to step up. And I think Chad Beebe's kind of my choice of people they have. If I'm gonna want one to step up, I think he fits the mold the best. He's kind of shifty, he's quick and kind of elusive, and he's shown he can at least field punts, which is good. And some people might want Mike Hughes doing that, but after the ACL, I don't know if I'm much of a fan of making Mike Hughes do that, knowing he's going to have to play corner at some point, being a first-round draft pick. Third one, Jaron Kearse, safety / linebacker. So I say / linebacker because there was a report earlier in the offseason here that, said he could be shifted to linebacker. And I do think we actually saw a massive improvement from him last season, and he became like their top option against tight ends. He was like he was their guy to lock that down for the most part. And I think most likely in a sub package, they're looking at him as a linebacker. And I really do think that has something to do with Anthony Barr, because there was a sack incentive thing with Barr about, $10 million worth of sack incentives. And this is how you replace that height and that length in the coverage. If you're talking about sub nickel packages where you could potentially see Barr down as a true defensive end, or maybe just a bunch of guys standing around, and maybe Barr goes, maybe he doesn't. But Jayron Kearse is also on the field, and maybe you just take off a down lineman. But that's one way to replace that height and length, because he's a 6'4" safety. So it could work that way. But where he needs to improve would be actually shedding blocks in the case of actual running the ball would happen, because obviously he would be a liability against some of these running plays, which I assume would be mainly draws, given the fact that I'm assuming this would be a sub package, not a full-time thing for Jayron Kearse. And there was one other guy I thought that could fill that role, but I thought Jayron Kearse might do it better, and that was Eric Wilson. But I have a feeling this is more of a Jayron Kearse thing, just to replace that height and length. The fourth one is Pat Elflein, the now left guard, former center, and also former right guard from Ohio State. So obviously he was drafted in the third round to be a center after playing right guard, but he's now moving to left guard, and he is a much more natural guard than he is a center. And I think after not having a full offseason last year, he never seemed to play like he did in 2017. But him actually adjusting to the left side of the line is a lot harder than some people think, because, I know a lot of people, he isn't flipping sides. Going from the interior to the middle is really difficult. That's probably one of the more difficult things to do on the line. But even if you're just talking right guard to left guard, that mirrors all their movements. Whatever you do here, if you have to move your right foot over here, if you flip the other side, that's your left foot that has to move now. And after years of repetition, that really gets embedded into your brain. So him actually being a left guard now is we need to actually see if he can adjust to it, because the last time he was a guard, he was on the right side for Ohio State. And him adjusting well to that spot is really big to this offensive line, because I think we can all agree the interior was a much larger problem than the two tackles last year. Unless Rashad Hill was playing, then it seemed to be difficult on the outside too. But that, I think, is something that not a lot of people talk about. It's just, oh no, Elflein will just shift over into left guard and everything will be hunky-dory. Everything's fine. A lot more difficult than that. So I think he can do it, just because he shifted to center and he did show some promising things at center. So there's nothing to lead me to believe he can't do it, but actually thinking he can and him doing it are two very different things. And my last one is actually an older player, which might sound weird, but more of a player returning to former glory. And that's Dan Bailey, the kicker. A lot of people don't talk about the kickers, and we usually try to ignore talking about kickers because Minnesota kickers. But he has kicked at 75% now for the past 2 years, and I think he's looking to regain that Pro Bowl form, obviously, but it's very crucial that he gets at least a little bit of that back and gets to that 80 to 85% range at least, and especially on a team that looks to be run first, defense first. Points could be at a premium if everything goes to their liking, which means reliable kicker is needed. And what Dan Bailey hasn't been the past 2 years now is a reliable kicker. So we kind of need him to come back a little bit. Not sure if that's a thing that can actually be coming back, but, it's what it is. Some people blame Matt Weil, the punter, because he hasn't been a holder that long. But the bottom line is you just got to make the kick. I know that's a weird, touchy position, but at the end of the day, did you make it? Did you not make it? That's what it is. And so, yeah, those are my 5 players I think we should be expecting to have more of a chance to either play or they need to step up, those kind of things. But once again, these are just players I think no one's kind of talking about for the most part, like general media things. So if there's more people I should have mentioned, maybe I should have gone to 10. You let me know your people, all those things. Till next time, I bid y'all adieu.